create the saxophone parts, let's copy the trumpets into the saxophone parts. I'm going to select trumpet 1, hold shift, select trumpet 4. Now I hold shift option and click the first measure in the alto saxophone to bring up the edit filter dialog. I make sure everything is selected because I want to copy everything. Press OK. Let's look at this in concert pitch for a moment. Looks like the saxophones are pretty high. Let's figure out where the saxophones are actually playing in this piece. If we go by the instructions that are written into the trio arrangement, we don't want the saxophones play during the first 2 bars. We want them to play the accents in bar 3 and 4, and we don't want them to play up to the chromatic run here. Press the clear key. So now this run is too high, obviously. So before we fix that, let's first delete the extra notes. Those notes are only to be played by the brass. Back to the range problem. These notes in the alto saxophones are pretty high, but playable. But we definitely want to transpose down the tenor saxophones by pressing 8. Here I bring down the tenor saxophones as well by pressing 8. So that fixes the saxophones. Almost. To make them perfect, let's put a forte dynamic in bar 3 on the first accented note and a fall off on the last accented note in bar 4. Looking at the piano score, we can see that the chromatic pickup should only be played by the saxophones. So we need to delete it from the trumpet parts. And since we're doing the trumpets right now, let's delete the pickup to bar 9 because that's when the saxophones take the melody. To delete them, click drag around the notes and press the clear key. And we could add accents to the trumpets here. I hold A and drag around those notes with the articulation tool selected, and that will put in accents. And the lead trumpet could use a shake. That's a really nice effect. And here we go. It's a good idea to put the word shake next to it. We use the expression tool for that. So I go to Technique, Text, Create, and I put in shake in parentheses. To play those following the orchestrator's instructions, the brass is not supposed to play in bar 2 and 3 except the pickup to bar 5. So let's delete those notes. Voila, we're done with the first page. Following the orchestrator's instructions, the saxophones are playing the melody during the first 6 bars of the second page. Those heavy accents played by the brass are not part of the melody. So let's clean up the saxophones by getting rid of the accents. Since the saxophones will be playing the melody in unison, we really only need to clean up alto saxophone 1. Okay, I'm going to drag around the note I like to get rid of and press the clear key. Now, this note should be a quarter note. So I'm going to go in there with the speedy entry tool and press 5 to make it a quarter and delete this 8th note rest. This is what this should look like. And I'm going to get rid of these accents. Let's make this 8th note a quarter note again and delete the extra 8th note. And we're going to copy the alto saxophone up to here, which is beat 3 in measure 6, into the other saxophones. I'm going to hold Option and click into the first bar of alto saxophone 2. So the tenor saxophones and the baritone should be an octave lower. I'm going to press 8 and bring those down. Let's now fix the last 3 measures. Looking at the trio score, we can see that the saxophones are only supposed to play on beat 4 in the second to last measure. So let's delete the extra notes. We also need to transpose the baritone down an octave in the second to last measure. For practice purposes, I will delete the trumpet and trombone parts on the second page and do them again from scratch, rather than fixing them. Next, let's copy the right hand of the piano part into the trumpet part 1 and the left hand of the piano part into the trombone part 1. Now let's delete all the single notes and keep the chords. We still need to delete the brass in the second to last bar on beat 4 and the end of 4, where the saxophones are featured. Let's now explode the trumpets and the trombones on the second page. Select the 8 measures in trumpet 1 and explode them. Then do the same thing with the trombone part 1. Take a closer look at the 5th and 6th bar of the trumpet parts. We need to convert those rests. Fixing the rests in bar 5 is easy. Just select it and press the clear key. To fix bar 6, we need to go in with the speedy entry tool. We can now copy the rests from the corrected trumpet part to the other trumpet parts and trombone parts. Select it, hold Option, and click where you want to copy it. By the way, we also need to copy it to trumpet part 1 and trombone part 1 to override the notes. Okay, I think it's about time to give this a listen. Play and keep your fingers crossed. There's no way to sugarcoat this, it just sounds terrible, and there are many reasons why it sounds like this. Let's fix the first problem, which is the feel of the song. Opus One is a swinging jazz tune which requires that the 8th notes are being swung. From the window menu, select Playback Controls if they're not already open. Click on the little disclosure triangle. We want to set the human playback engine to jazz and give it a heavy swing feel. Let's give it another listen. If you want Finale to use the Garriton sounds for playback, you got to make sure that playback through audio units in the MIDI audio menu is selected. Let's open the Score Manager. You can do this by pressing Command K, or you can find it here. And here under Device you can see every single sound plays back through the Smart Music Soft Synth library. So we really need to switch those. Unfortunately, there's no way to do this globally, so you will have to do this with every single one. to switch this to bass, and you find it under plugged strings, right here, upright bass. Obviously the drum set is not a grand piano, so let's switch this one to standard drums. You get out of the score manager by pressing Command K again, by the way. If you listened closely enough, you probably heard the chord symbols play back. That's obviously not what we want. If you're already in the selection tool, you can simply double-click a chord to switch to the chord tool. In the chord menu, select the last entry called Enable Chord Playback to disable chord playback. I guess we can all agree that the reverb effect we're hearing is not very good and also way too strong. Let me show you where the reverb actually comes from. There are actually 3 different places where you can insert a reverb effect in Finale. One of these places we can find in the Audio Units and Effects dialog, where the Master Effect slots reside. There are 3 Master Effect slots. Usually there is already an ambience effect inserted in slot 1, in this case the Ballroom 1 effect. You can click on the pencil symbol to change its settings. For example, you could bring down the wet gain to give it less effect. To turn the master effects off altogether, you can check the box for Bypass Master Effects. The second place where you can add an effect is in the Aria Player's dialog box. When you click on the Effects tab on the right, you get to 2 more slots where you can insert reverb effects. You can turn them off with the on-off switch, change the effect, and tweak the effect. To give you a taste of what Finale's effects sound like, I inserted the Ballroom 1 effect in the ambient slot and the Medium Piano Concert Hall effect in the Convolution slot. Let's give it a listen. They both actually sound pretty decent. Now there's one more place where you can insert an effect, and that's in the mixer, to be exact, in the master channel of the mixer, which you find all the way to the right. You can insert different types of reverb effects, and you can change the wet amount. I like to turn this off as well. So now all the effects are turned off. Well, obviously, it sounds very dry because we turned the effects off, but the advantage of this is you can now export this as an audio file and bring it into, for example, Logic and put a really good effect on it. Or you can export every single staff and put a special effect on each instrument. So I think that's the way to go if you really want to create a nice playback from Finale.